Hey, how's it going, everybody? Sarasota Tim. Welcome to Evening Chat and another story time. I kind of been thinking about it today. I've got a few, and so if you like these types of videos, we may continue them. Some of my stories, I don't know, they're kind of out there, but I thought about what I might share tonight with you as a continuation after my first marriage at a very early age and dropping out of school, leaving Florida, going back to San Diego to be with my mom and meeting this woman that was much older than me and teaching me the worldly ways of life. And a child was born, and then some things happened. I was working some odd jobs. I got a job. I made some coffee here. I'm gonna get all hopped up for you. It just got done. I've already got the heavy whipping cream in the cup. So let's just pour ourselves a cup. Let's check the color on it. We're doing tomorrow morning's morning chat tonight because yesterday I went to bed at 9:30. These videos were uploading very quickly with the 720. And I didn't get up. I got up about 4, and I laid there, and I got up, next thing I knew it was 7:30. So that's a lot of sleep, which is very good for you. I don't really like it though, because I want to stay with 5-6 hours is what generally most elderly people sleep. But they say it's very good for you. I just hate sleeping my life away and starting late in the day like that. I do love the mornings at 5 and 6, owning it and having coffee and watching what I like to watch on TV that are get me in the mood, reading some things, the devotional and all that. And this morning when I got up, I felt like I was way behind. But whatever happens, happens, as long as I feel good. So let me take a sip of this coffee. It's nice and warm. Man, I just love that heavy whipping cream. It just makes that coffee so good. Folks, really, that's the best cup of coffee I ever drank in my life. That is good coffee. Definitely slurpable. I'm going to hold it right here in my hand because I don't want to put it down. So I was working odd jobs when I was with my first wife. I got a job changing tires. I think I mentioned it before. Before I got in the car business, people would come in, want new tires. I just wash my hands, and then next thing you know, somebody else would come in wanting tires. It was nonstop, all day long. I was sitting there trying to think because I was really going through a tough time. There was a lot of stress on me as a young kid, and being with her, and she was getting ready to have birth, and then I had, her 2 kids. She received some money from the state. She was receiving, I guess, welfare, food stamps, and that kind of thing. Plus, she received a child support from her ex, for the 2 kids. So there was some income there that she had, but it wasn't a lot. Believe me, in those days, it wasn't much. Hey, but it was a help because there's no way I was going to be able to do it, helping somebody change tires. So anyway, the car issue, unlike a lot of you, AC just came on. Excuse me. I had no, I don't know what happened to that Delta 88. Something happened, it broke or whatever, and I ended up getting, I think it was like a motorcycle, like an XL, a street dirt bike, and I'm riding, across town to this tire company on a motorcycle to, or maybe I couldn't afford the gas in the 455 or something. This is 50 years ago, folks, and so the only thing I can tell you is I was broke as a joke. No credit, didn't have any way of establishing any. I never had a job long enough yet. I mean, it was a lot of difficulties that was preventing me, from getting, credit. So somehow or another, the gift that God gave me of communication and a door that He opened for me, I found an ad. I remember when I was young, I was selling Fuller Brush, Shackley. I had newspaper routes, soliciting for the newspaper as a little tite. So I already had this door-to-door ambition, ready to get out there and make some money and, type attitude. So I seen this ad, and what you did is you went around door to door and you sold military. San Diego was a solid, in those days, military, Navy. The Navy, Coronado Island, Coronado base was there. All the aircraft carriers, destroyers. I mean, San Diego Bay still has them. A fleet of our naval ships. So in the area I live, every apartment complex, if they didn't live on a ship and they were married, or a bunch of guys got together and shared the rent, then they lived off the ship in an apartment. And it was just like Navy almost in every apartment complex. Navy, Navy, Navy. So the reason I'm saying this is I got this job where I specifically only wanted to sell to military people. Young boys right out of boot camp, E2s, E3s, E4s, enlisted pay grade. And what the program was is you knock on the door and you try to get in. I'll explain that in a moment, how we did it. Pretty ingenious, actually. And you gave a sit-down presentation. Old school selling. Not just at the door, give me your money and, gone like I did with the coupon business for 33 years. No, this had to take 45 minutes to an hour presentation, going through different things and leading up to a close and a contract. And you leave there, they have nothing, it's going to come in the mail, and you got a contract. I mean, this was sure enough Dale Carnegie, Zig Ziglar, door to door, in home, like the encyclopedia guy or the pots and pan guy. Okay, so what it was is you'd go to an apartment complex, and the way we dressed was slacks, a button-down shirt, maybe a polo or a button-down like this. It was tucked, nice belt, nice shoes. You looked professional casual, okay? And you go to these apartment complexes where you knew, and you could tell, all the Navy guys that lived off base had a Navy sticker on the bumper of their car, a blue or a red sticker, and that means blue was officer and enlisted men had a red one, I think, if I remember. But anyway, they had a naval sticker to get on base, to get on the ship and whatever. Whether it be a motorcycle or a car, they all had these Navy stickers. So, and you really didn't have to look at the cars. You just knew that the place was going to have 80% military living in there. So you would go and you would write the names in a little, I was trained, you get a 3x5 notebook, and you write the name of the apartment complex as the header. And it would have a mail center where the mailboxes were. And in those days, you remember those sticker tapes that people used to punch out their name? Just a blue or a white or a red tape. You peel the back off and stick it on, and they stuck it on the top of their mailbox on the outside. And so you'd write down all the names on the mailbox. And then you would go to another apartment complex as close as you could find, and you would get yourself in your notebook maybe a dozen, at least 8 or 10, many as you could, apartment complexes. And each day, you would go to the mailbox center and you would look at your names that you wrote and check them against the names on the mailbox again. And when the name you got and the name that's on that apartment number is different now, that means that Smith moved out and Jones is now a new resident. So you scratch out Smith, or you make a mark, new, I forgot what we did, made some kind of notation there, and then write down the new name. And you might have 2 or 3, that were new. Turnover was all the time. These guys were getting shipped out on ships. They were moving all around the world. They were sending them to Okinawa. They were going to Hawaii and all that. It was a different world. God, 50 years ago, hard to believe. So when you got these new names, what did that tell you? It told you there was a new resident. So I know their name and I know they just moved in. And so I would go knock on the door, and if they opened the door and it wasn't a military person that I wanted to try to sell my package to, I'll tell you what the package was. And they opened the door with some man or woman, civilian. I wouldn't say, "Are you Mr. Jones or Mrs. Jones?" I knew it was. I would say the old name. "Are you Mr. and Mrs. Smith?" "Oh no, we just moved in, they're gone." "Oh, okay, sorry to bother you." Because you didn't want to sell to them. This wasn't pertaining to them. This was only something we wanted to target military. So, if it was a young guy, you could tell he come, his haircut, he's an E2 or E3 or 4. You knew Navy guys. Half of them had bongs going on in there, reefers smoking out the window, and beer bottles. I don't know if you remember those big cable wheels that they rolled cable on. We used them as tables. Bachelor guys, young guys, they'd get them up in the apartment somehow and turn them over, and that would be a round table. Yeah, it was, it was amazing back in those days. I'm just remembering some of these things that we did. So I would say, are you Jones? When they opened the door, and the guy goes, yeah. And they're looking at you, and you got, you're a little older, or you're, more, look like, dressed. Maybe you're, I don't know, that you immediately were sort of respected, and you knew their name. So they were set back a little bit. You had kind of control. And so they say, yeah. And I say, well, my name is Tim, and are you the new folks that just moved in? And sometimes it'd be a husband and wife. A lot of times it'd be 3 guys roommating. You never knew, but either one was good. Actually, the 3 guys was even better. Well, I'll tell you why. So he'd say, yeah. I'd say, well, my name is Tim. You're the new people who just moved in, and I would say, what do we say? We just stopped. Excuse me, I lost my voice. I say we just stopped by and say hello to the new people and drop off a little courtesy presentation for the new people when they first move in. You got a second? I start scratching my feet at the door like I'm coming in. It was a very assertive move. This is the way I was taught. And the guy was like, "Oh, yeah, come on in. And so they're still wondering who you were. Maybe you're with the apartments or or whatever. But 2 things have happened so far. One, the post guy, the pots and pan guy, the newspaper guy, meant to say, Pots and Pans Encyclopedia, and whoever else was peddling out there. And there were a lot of peddlers. Back in those days, they were peddlers. And I got him first because I knew he just moved in. It wasn't like just cold call, and the guys already had, 5 or 6 solicitors since he's been living there, knock on the door. So that's why the whole thing was by knowing their name and whatever, and saying that my name is so and so. I just stopped by and drop off a little courtesy presentation for the new people when they first move in. Got a second? All right, so you get in the door, you got nothing with you, just your notebook, because when you go, are you Jones? You know, yeah, you get your little notebook there. So you establish a little bit of authority, you know. It was pretty cool. And so you go in, sit down, and somehow or another, in those days, everybody was into 35 millimeter cameras. All the Navy guys on ships had zoom lenses, 35 millimeter cameras. They were notorious for taking sunset pictures out in the ocean on these ships when they're on a Westpac, which means they're at sea 3 to 6 months without ever returning to port, never see their wives and family again. And they would take pictures over in Hawaii at the USS Arizona, the memorial, and they would take pictures of, you know, F-14s and jets, you know, the naval jets that take off on the aircraft carriers and stuff. And you would explain that you're a photography company and that you would just like to get their opinion on some military photos. And I forgot why or what, I really do. But anyway, that was your excuse when they say, yeah, we'll take a look. You know, you're not selling anything, you're not saying anything like that yet. Now you leave the apartment, you go to your car, and you come back with a black suitcase. It looked like you carry a PV speaker in. I mean, it was a wide black with a silver trim suitcase. Inside there was lots of stuff. Contracts, pens, papers, a big photo album, leather bound, a huge white, gorgeous Bible with gold leaf on the pages on the outside edge, and a coupon book, another coupon book. And then all these 8x10 glossy and matte finish, perfectly spot dodged, center balanced, color balanced photos of sunsets, F-14s or whatever they were in those days, the USS Arizona, and all of these things that these guys have seen, you know, ships and all of this. You've got, you know, a half a dozen or so of these photos. Now, remember, these guys are already got their own little snapshots. We had to get everything developed in those days. There was no such thing as an iPhone, any kind of a mobile phone. But if you had a nice 35 millimeter camera, you could get some nice snapshots developed, or 5x7s or 8x10s, and have a pictorial record of your time in the service. So this was right up these guys' alley. So you're showing these photos, and then you're saying you have a coupon book that you can send in with the photos they took of these other places out on the cruise, on their on the ship they were on, and overseas in Japan and wherever they went. You say, you send us the negative or even the actual photo you had printed, and we will create either a 5x7 or an 8x10 photo from your photo or negative like these. And you can put it in this album. You bring out this photo album, and it would have these pages. Remember photo albums, how they used to be out on the table growing up, and people would come over and you always like take a look at the photos. That was another thing we used to do, remember? Always looking at photos. Several photo albums would be out on the table. Not just the wedding photos, but holidays, family photos. People put photos on the wall, all of that. So photos, as you can see, was a cool niche. And so we'd say, you can get these photos made with us, and you can put them in this album, this leather album. It said Our Memories or whatever in gold on the outside. It was a beautiful album. By the way, the Bible's brown, not white. I'm sorry, because I'm going to talk about that. So you get this coupon book that you can send in all these coupons. It was like that thick, real thin paper too, all kinds. You pay though a little bit to have your picture enlarged, but you get a big discount because it's coupon book. Then you say you get this album with it to put the pictures in, and now you bring out the Bible. The Bible has. Do you remember any big family Bibles? You remember the white one with the gold zipper around it, that was like that thick? They were like $80. I think that's what we used to say in our presentation, and no pictures in it. Our Bible had statistics, oddities, color pictures, the Sistine Chapel, numerous pictures that you would show as part of your presentation within about a 2 or 3 minute part of that, and showing these, creating value, just showing these beautiful. It was a beautiful Bible. It was an heirloom. We talked about that. We say this is an heirloom. You pass this down to your family. And we used to quote things like statistics and oddities that, do you know what the most used word in the Bible is? And this might have been long before the multiple, translations there are today. There was the King James, and there was the King James. I don't know how many different. There might have been some more modern English translation in the 70s, but we would say it's not thee, thou, though, or anything like that. You would think it's the word and it appears 46,287 times. I never forgot that. And so you'd show them the statistics and oddities, and give them something they can know, some trivia. Show them these beautiful pictures. A lot of them have been over in Italy, maybe on their ship took them over there. The ships go all over the world, So, and then you would say, you buy this from us, okay? And you would say, this album is worth this photo album, these coupons with all these pictures you can make is worth all this. And you would say, guess how much this Bible's worth? And you would say, those white ones with the gold zipper are $80 and no pictures. And so you would create a big value. It's your close. And then, this is what really got them, is two things. One is, we would say, what most people are doing is they're having the coupon book and the photo album come to them. And they send the beautiful Bible home to mom and dad because it's like an heirloom. They can put it on the table. And so, you got them like, oh yeah, visualizing that. But really what got them is these guys were right out of boot camp, had no credit yet. They all wanted to get a car. They all knew they had a 4-year guaranteed job. They all knew that all their buddies that have already been in for a year or two and why they went in, got their credit going, got a car. The banks were financing them because, they had a guaranteed income and that kind of thing. So, but they didn't have credit yet, a lot of these guys. They just got out of boot camp. So you'd say, if you take this program, it was an installment plan. It wasn't something they had to pay you right there. They just had to agree to take it and make payments to the company that I worked for. And the payments, I guess in those days was, $20 a month or something. I don't know. It was ridiculous. I think the whole thing was like $365 for the coupon book, the photo album, big photo album, and the beautiful Bible. And we would say, we report to Dun & Bradstreet. So after you've made a few payments, they're a AAA rated company, you're going to have a credit rating established. And they're like, starting my credit, send the Bible home to mama. I can get all these beautiful pictures done. I got a 35 millimeter. I'm into that. I got my own pictures I want to get enlarged and put in that album and all that. And so they'd sign up. And a lot of times, these roommates would sign up too. Now, part of the deal was if it was a husband and wife that you were talking to and it wasn't a bunch of roommates, then you made sure that both decision makers were there before you wasted your time and gave this presentation. If the wife or husband wasn't home, it's going to take both to agree. So you try to overcome all that. But anyway, that's what I did for only about a year. Wasn't that long, and I did sell them. And then it got to be tough, where I wasn't selling them. I was making, I think, like $100 if they bought one, and if the roommates got them and I signed 3 contracts up, that would be something the next day to go back to your boss and say, how many deals did you get? And you'd say, I got 4. You closed a single couple, and then you went to another apartment and gave another presentation. Remember, it takes about an hour, and you're only going to work a couple hours a night. And if 2 of the 3 or all 3 of them or whatever, and you got like 3 or 4 contracts, and you felt like you were really a salesman. And they had nothing. They just had the idea that something was going to come. They didn't give you any money. Maybe they gave you a little small check for a down payment, $20, $50 or something like that. I forget, $25. So that's what I did before I got in the car business. Another, direct sales. That was the only job I ever did where I gave a presentation. Everything else that I've been doing door to door was door, sell, give me money, next door. It wasn't, I had to go out and get stuff out of my car, material, and sit you down and give you the, slideshow and presentation. But I did do that. And the dream, of course, was to make, in the 70s, you know how much money people were making and how far, a few $100 a week. If you got, close 2 deals a night, $200 a night, and you were making, you work 5 nights, you can work 7 nights, you can work whatever you want. And but you got to get a presentation. You got to find a new person at an apartment that you can get in, and they'll let you. They got to be home, and they're interested in letting you in, or sometimes they didn't even want it. So there you go. They didn't even want to look at your photos. So everything was a process. Then I got in the car business. I got out of that. Something happened. I just stopped doing it. Can't even remember, 50 years ago. But I do remember my father was in the business, of course, car business. And I was looking in the ads again. That's what we did in those days. We always look in the newspaper for a job. And I saw an ad to be a car salesman at a Chevrolet dealer. And Don Knotts, the actor on Andy Griffith, was their advertising person. He advertised on TV for them. And it was Lamb Chevrolet, Lamb. And it was a very aggressive in those days selling. It was a good cop, bad cop, all the things they don't do today, because today everybody can see what cost is. You can go on the internet. It was a whole different thing. It was a big showman deal. Yeah, the whole car salesman thing. So I won't go into about the car business. I'm just going to say, when I got out of that other business, the ad said, help Don Knotts move all these Chevys, make $3,000 this month if you're on the ball. And I think I've told this before. And I thought, well, damn, if I can make half of that, $1,500 a month, $3,000 a month in 1975, huge money. And so this is what I was hooked on as a very young person, was making thousands in a month versus the basic hourly wage and the basic yearly income that we talked about in a video I made the other day about the 70s and what people made in the 50s. I mean, I think in the 70s, it was like 17 grand a year or something like that. Yeah, something like that. So, so then I got in the car business, and I was at that Chevrolet dealer. They taught me everything. That was it was just like being in the Navy. I mean, you went into boot camp. You came to work every day, every salesman, no matter what your shift was, You had to come every morning at 8:30 for a sales meeting, and they had a chalkboard in the front of the sales room, sales conference room, and the manager would pretend to be a customer and throw objections at you, like, I'm not gonna pay that, or I want my payment this and that. I mean, it was Playhouse 90. It was Actors Guild. I mean, and each one of us had to learn from how they taught us of what to say. That's right. They trained us. And my job as a salesman at that place wasn't like today when you buy a car, you meet the guy and he does all the paperwork. He goes on a computer now and prints everything. Everything was ink, pen, and also you didn't consummate the deal. The only thing I had to do was say hello to you, give you a test drive, be nice to you, make you like me like you, and then get you to want to buy the car today, not tomorrow, today, that you'll drive it home if you got a good enough deal. And if they agreed to that, and that's what most people did, because anytime you go buy a car, there's a looking part and then there's a buying part. And our job was to get you excited enough, give you a test drive. There was no doubt before you could even go in the office and talk numbers with them. You had to drive it. Because that was all part of it. They didn't want to fall in love with it, but we made them. And so you get them in the office and sit them down and get their name and address and take that paperwork to your closer. He was the hammer. I wasn't. I was just a nice guy. Got you coffee, met you on the lot, gave you a test drive, and hopefully you felt sorry for me and you wanted to buy the car because you liked me, but you also want that car or truck or van. We used to sell those vans with the mural paint jobs on them and the shag carpet on the inside, like a hippie's van. I'm not talking about the one with the sink and all that in them like they started doing later. I'm talking about they were hippie vans, mural paint job, not stripe decal and stuff. I'm talking about cool mag wheels, wide aluminum, Chevy van, Ford vans. I sold Chevy vans. You sold one of them, nobody knew the real price because it had a custom job done to it. So we just make up whatever we wanted, and it was always a big profit margin in that. And generally when you sold one, of course you made a big profit. I don't know what the profits were. They ripped off the salesman probably left and right in those days. We had no idea what dealer cost was and if our commission was legitimate. I'm sure they ripped us off too. But I did pretty well. And they gave me a car. And so it was on from there, 17 years. But after I got good training and had a pretty good reputation, that I was good at selling myself and getting people interested in a car, I was, forgot how I got the job, and I'm going to not talk about the car business anymore, but I had to lead up to this. I got a job at this Toyota dealer up the street that was like impossible to get in as a green pea. I was a green pea. I didn't know all the end thing, but they had guys that were pros. They all had Mont Blanc and cross pins, and they thought, well, I'll have my own liner. That's what I was a liner. And I'm out on the line. I didn't know anything about the numbers and the finance and the payments and how to calculate or even who to go talk to. I was only trained one thing: get the customer before this other salesman, get him on a car, get him in the office to agree to buy the car today at some price. And so my reputation was good, and I went to this Toyota dealer, and by the grace of God, I got in. And I had a couple of guys take me under their wing that I had to split my commission. It's called getting a half deal, a split deal, because I really didn't know what I was doing, and they would come in and they were just making this easy money because I'm just bringing these people in, to buy these Toyotas. And in this particular time, Toyotas were getting more than window sticker. This is when the Celica was selling in 1977. The Celica liftback, they didn't call it a hatchback, the liftback, the Corolla liftback. And we were adding louvers on the back window, a little shade louver, looked like blinds, and stereo equipment. Everything was a 5-speed. The automatics were rare. And all of this, additional accessories to build the price up to make more profit, because people wanted those Corollas. They wanted those Celicas. We sold Coronas. Remember a Corona? And then a Cressida. You remember Cressidas? And then the Toyota Tacoma came out, but it was called a different vehicle, just a Toyota pickup, I think. And I was the king. They were in such demand that people were coming in leaving a $500 deposit on the next one. Didn't matter what color. Some people were specific. They only wanted a blue or a white or a red. So when that truck would come in carrying those Toyotas, and they had Toyota trucks on them, most of those were sold by Tim already. So I'd call those people. They were down there lickety-split. They couldn't wait to drive it and get it. And the Toyota truck, you know, as we know, the Tacoma is an amazing truck, and everybody loves them, and they're still the craze. So I made a lot of money working for that dealership in 77, 78. And then I'll end this video, but I'll tell you what happened where I stole a vehicle off the lot, didn't really steal it, borrowed it without permission. We were given demos to drive. In those days, all the cars had what they call a lockbox. The real estate people use them. A lockbox. It was a silver box, like a little safe, that hung on the window of every car on the lot. And you had a key, a master key. It looks like a Coca-Cola machine key, right? You know the one. You stick it in, turn it, and the car keys are inside. And they were in there 24/7. We didn't remove them from the lock boxes at night. They stayed there overnight, because unless you had a lockbox key, you couldn't open that. And we would block the driveway with cars. They still do that today, so nobody can steal a car off the lot and get past the blockers. They call them blockers. But I'll tell you the story about how I borrowed a car, went to Mexico, was a kind of a, I wasn't arrested, but held at the border. So they called the general manager, and of course I was let go and hired back. That's how good I was. And it was it's kind of a humorous but serious story. It was nothing in intent to steal anything. It was just, I'll get into it if you want to hear about it. And believe it or not, now that I remember that part, I was still with my first wife. So I believe I had not left her yet when I was doing the Bible deal to the military, and in the car business for a short time. So we were together 2.5 years or whatever. A lot of jobs and stuff transpired. I got out of that tire changing thing pretty quickly and got into the sales. And of course, things ended up dissolving and we went our own way. But anyway, that's tonight's story. It's a 40-minute video. And so we'll continue the progress of my, I'm still only 19, 18. Married her at 16. Child was born when I was 17. I was 18 in the car business. Also, yeah, I got in the car business. I think that tire thing only lasted a very short time, because I also lied about my age and got in the car business because you had to have a vehicle salesman license issued by the Department of Motor Vehicles, an official license. It had to hang on the wall, like barbers. That's what California, I think they probably still have that. And I said I was older than I was to get the job. I just figured, hey, if they catch me, I'm going to say you're lucky I'm trying to work than than just to collect welfare. And they didn't check it. They just accepted what I put down as my being 18, gave me my license, and I got a job in the car business. So that's another part I forgot to tell you is in order to be in the business, even though I applied, I was still under 18. So that's what happened. That's how I got in the car business. I'm trying to make money. And that began a 17-year career with me. And it went on in different states, and I got remarried again eventually. We'll talk about that if you want. And how I met that one, and how long it lasted, and what happened, what I'm willing to share anyway. And so, yeah, just out there hustling, man, before I even turned 18, and long before I turned 21. By the time I was 21, I already seen everything, done everything. That's why now I'm kind of like a kid. I was such a grown-up and playing the part of a big-time, family man kind of thing, and supporting kids and wives and working and driving a demo and being like my dad and thinking I'm this big shot and all that. And then later in life, I just played golf all the time. The business that I was in for 33 years, it was very lucrative, and I didn't work very much, a few hours a day, a few days a week, made good money. And I've just been playing. I've been basically semi-retired for probably 35 plus years now, and just crushing life. So I hope you liked the video. Give it a thumbs up. Please leave your comments. I enjoyed reading your comments yesterday. I hope I didn't scatter around or confuse you too much. And a little spoiler alert I gave you of the next video we can talk about before I go into marriage number 2. But yeah, it's fun to talk about it and remember it. That's 50 years ago, folks. Can't believe it. So have a good night. Please give it a thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, please consider subscribing. I noticed that a few people have, and the numbers went up a little bit. We're trying to get to 100,000. It's a bucket list for me, so I can get the YouTube plaque called a play button. It's a real accomplishment for people that build a community to 100,000 subscribers. I work pretty hard at this. It is a prison job. I'm busy every day trying to share my life with everybody and make these videos. Some aren't as good as others. Some are a little corny, but I'm just trying to do all I can. And soon there'll be more content of a different variety like we've done in the past. Travel, reviews, dining. It's just all over the map. RVing, how-to, experiences. So if you like this kind of content, it's just what it is. Please consider subscribing. I thank you very much. Crush it!